I wish I could tell you from a church standpoint what is coming, but it's a little early for me to say it right now. Everything inside of me wants to. But here's what I would rather have. I would rather have a congregation that has faith in the unseen than a weak congregation who's like, well, show us and then we'll see if we. And I'm like, oh, no, God doesn't lead me like that. You know what I was feeling? That whole lion, you've got a lion inside of those lungs. So David, he approaches Goliath with some angst, and he's like, who do you think you are? But he beat a lion to do that. And there's been a lion, I think, in your life, and in my life, that David faced early on. The lion and the bear trying to steal the flock. Well, there's been something, a lion. See, it says the enemy walks her about like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour, right? So there's this counterfeit lion of the enemy's threat in your life that you have been afraid of, that actually came and stole something from you. And because you weren't in the Lord the way that David was in the Lord, you couldn't go after the lion. So this is what I'm sort of feeling like for you, is that there's been a lion that you've come up against and gone back from. But it's also interesting that when David found his strength in the Lord and he beat the lion, then he beat the bear, then he beats Goliath. Every Goliath is just another lion and a bear, just a little bit bigger. But here's the thing. Jesus is called the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And if David lets this lion, this counterfeit lion, take him back and take the sheep, which I think has happened to somebody in the room. If David lets that happen. So I think that tonight is the night of restoring, where you're going to actually go at that counterfeit lion with the Lion of the tribe of Judah that came from the line of David of the tribe of Judah, that no giant can stand against Jesus. Is that making sense to you? It's just something that I feel like the Lord is saying of like, you've gone back in the day of battle and the enemy took something from you. Tonight's the night where we're going to go back there and we're going to get that thing back. And then we're going to go on and see what God can do to Goliath too. So I just want to just give you some hope and some faith there. Is this mic loud enough? I feel like I'm losing my voice. Thanks. That's pastor speak for turn my mic up. So, awesome. You guys know Pastor Aaron? Pastor Aaron is preaching on Mother's Day. It's going to be awesome. Was that for her or against me? No, good. It's for her. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. We're actually working on that sermon together. It's going to be great. But I'm not going to do it because I'm not a mom. So, you're supposed to welcome the people. Oh.
Well, we've kind of already done that.
Right. This is also the last first Wednesday. We're kind of past that. That's true. We have an exciting family announcement that Pastor Aaron's going to be talking to you about Sunday, but you got to come Sunday. So she's pregnant with triplets.
No. No, I am not pregnant.
Or was that a faith statement?
No, it was not a faith statement.
I just want to see. Did I mention we're going to take up communion afterwards? There's communion under your chairs as well, just so you're aware of that. So. I just want to give a little word of exhortation. We've grown a lot since Easter as well, and so just in population. So that's great. Can you just take it upon yourself to be like, I'm responsible to take somebody one step further with me? Don't do people this disservice on Sunday of like, hi, oh, it's great to meet you. I'm like, that's great, but that's good for you to feel good about yourself, but take them one step further. Be like, have you had a chance to get your free gift? Oh, let's walk you to the 7-minute party. Then just turn and walk, because you're Canadians, and they're Canadians. They won't not follow you. So I just do that. I'm just like, oh, you haven't been there? Oh, let's go. And then I just start walking, and they just follow me. And then I'm like, it's free stuff. Who doesn't want to do that? Hey, what's next for you at Venue Church? Have you joined a small group? Join my small group. Have you joined a team? Oh, let's come on my team. Have you gone to Pizza with Pastors? I'll take you with me. So can you do that for somebody this Sunday? If you're talking to somebody new, first of all, go meet somebody new, because this isn't really a social club. Like, it is, because we love each other. Like, go meet somebody new and be like, what's next for you? Pull them into the life and where was I going with all that? Oh, I need to talk about people showing up to church late.
Okay.
You see what I did with the segue there? Our church service is 60 minutes long. So if you miss the first 10 minutes because it feels cool, I don't know. Can we just, it's just one of those things, if we respect the Lord a little bit, get up a little earlier, be a little more disciplined. Like, if the King of England was here, you probably wouldn't rock in late. You know what I'm saying? Well, God is much greater than that. But I think that your level of expectation that you bring and your level of respect that you bring is also the fruit that you walk away with as well. So I just want to give, like, because I care about you, I would tell my kids that. I would be like, hey, show up. Here's an idea. Show up early. If you grew up in my dad's house, Pastor Richard, I figured out in grade 12 that every clock in the house was 15 minutes fast. So you're like, you can't do that. I'm like, agreed. And then you're like, it took you till grade 12 to figure that out. I'm like, that was a lot of confusing TV shows for me. So I'm like, it's ending in the middle of, I don't get it. And then I would just always miss the end of the TV show. So that's on me. But it's just one of those things. If you show respect to the Lord, the reason we want you to do that is so that you honor the Lord, so that you can reap honor. Because you reap what you sow. That's really all that we care about. But also, when somebody else sees you coming in late, they also have permission to come in late now too. So what we're doing is we're actually like teaching the wrong thing. So let's not do the Canadian Lemmings thing of like, hey, somebody jumped off a cliff. We should do that. Actually, like, let's lead people into the house of God. You know, that's going to stick with you, I think. So, okay. So Pastor Aaron, I've called this Swiss cheese tonight. And I think you should take notes on your phone. I think that would probably help you. I would just encourage you to do that. Because there's going to be some stuff in here that you're not going to agree with that God is going to use to change you. And so if you see it later, you can be like, oh, this is a great idea and it was my idea. And then you can do that. So Pastor Aaron, why don't we just tell people where we've been, you and I?
Okay.
By we, I meant you.
Our pastors, Pastor Peter and Carolyn, just recognized in us that there were some areas that we were wanting to grow in.
Whoa. Just tell them where we've been. I don't want to go down to that.
They recommended a place that's been really great for their friends and their staff. And so they told us, recommended a place to go for us to go to a marriage intensive. And it was amazing. Someone told me tonight that they've noticed that something has changed in us. So
yeah, that we're gross and snuggly.
Yeah. That was Pastor Nate's fault, though, because he said
I'm just all about research and science now. So. Okay. That's Pastor Nate. Where did your hand just touch me? No. Okay. Some of this actually comes from a Christian clinical therapist and a clinical social worker as well. And so today we're going to explore something I've called Swiss cheese. We're going to go after a false belief that you may have that my core needs can be met by anything other than God. So I have core needs in my life as a human that can be met by anything other than God. Pastor, do you want to stick around or not really? Okay. So this is just something that we've been learning, that we want to pass along to you, that most of us are like Swiss cheese. This is the analogy that we have. Now, some of our human relationships kind of decrease the holes in our lives, and some of them increase the holes in your life. And you're like, yeah, my kid's dance instructor, I got it, My mother-in-law, like whatever, yeah, okay. But no human relationship, no human activity can actually fill the holes in your life outside of God. So right there, all of society is totally wrong because they're like, hey, you can fill it with anything, anything that you would substitute in there. So from your family of origin, whether you have a romantic relationship that you're starting or a friendship or work or recreational, your kids' hockey, whatever, when you onboard a new relationship, I think what you and I have been doing, and this is what we found out that we've been doing, is that you're basically handing them a rock that says, my core needs, meet my core needs, and I'll try to meet yours. Then we carry those rocks around. Some of you had kids because you thought that your kids would meet your core needs of being needed and wanted. And then you found out that it did the opposite. It's like we were already drowning and then somebody threw us a baby, But this whole idea of anything outside of God can meet my core needs. So now what has happened as we enter a relationship or even a career, we've just told a fish to climb a tree and we're going to get super upset with them when they can't. And you've also made a promise that you're a fish that can climb a tree that can't. And so already we're at this basis of we're going to be really, really disappointment. And what it's going to do is actually increase the holes and the gaps already in our life because now we're going to people with holes and gaps, expecting them to fill our holes and gaps when the author of all of that is not them and could never be them. And so I just want to recognize that I think that's been everybody in the room. That's a heavy burden to bear. Tonight, I think you don't have to walk out carrying that. Whether you've disappointed people, disappointed yourself, or somebody's disappointed you. I'm going to say they never could do it for you anyways. I'm not saying you haven't been betrayed. I'm just saying, like, the reason it hurt so much is because you thought that they were there to fulfill your core needs. And that's why you got in that relationship with them, and that's what you thought you could fulfill in them. But what a heavy burden. Let's lay that down tonight as a false belief that we need to fix. So whether it's security in like love and acceptance or approval, whether it's significance, that to me is a huge deal, significance, competence and respect and purpose. But, you know, when we're looking to people or things or activities to fill those gaps, it's just never going to work. And then what happens is I'm married, so that's just a natural thing there to say is like, when needs overlap, then whose needs get met? You know, enter the power struggle. I'm like, what is your job to fulfill this need? Why aren't you doing this thing? Well, I'll do that thing when you do that thing. You know, and it just ends this, you know, it starts into this interesting sort of, and as needs go unmet longer and longer, we become more and more self-absorbed. And then we become more acutely aware of kind of what we, because we believe that our core needs can be met by anybody other than God. So I even have a friend who was involved in a great church and like in a really key position that had a baby really, really late. It was a girl, just to let you know. I just thought I would say that. I thought it was funnier than how you responded. So you know how it is when you've been waiting for a child for so long? Waiting and waiting and waiting. And then you have this baby, like kind of late, like miracle baby. But then what happened is she stopped like going to church, stopped serving, and stopped that crucial connection with the Lord and his house because she got the promise. And I'm thinking, you know what can be really bad for idolatry is if your marriage actually did work out. It's just a thought. Like if your teenager actually did work out the way, you know what I'm saying? It creates this other thing of this, oh, then it's actually happening in this direction when it can't for your soul. Not really. It would be good for your teenager. It would be good for a lot of things. But so think about it like this. I feel like my friend had a baby and then handed this baby this giant rock. That's like, meet my core needs. It's on you now. I'm like, but it can't be. It can't be. You're going to get all weird in your head about it. And so this is how, and this is a teaching from a guy named Pete Kuiper. He said it's like a deep diver with an oxygen hose. And so I'm just going to, like, in my family, I'm just going to say, like, so I'm in, you know, like those deep divers with those suits. Do we know what what are they called? Can somebody help me? Not scuba, though. What? Well, scuba, but like with the hose to the boat that people are pumping. Deep sea. Okay, that's as far as I go, and nobody in the room knows that, so don't be disappointed in me about that. So this is what happens, though, is that Pastor Aaron's in the boat, and I'm like, keep that oxygen pumping, but then if the hose gets blocked, because my hose, I think, is attached to her, then I'm focusing on her. I'm like, I'm drowning down here, like, get that hose. But here's the thing, what if God has any way and any amount of hoses to actually get you oxygen where you want it, and it's not dependent on the person that you think that it's dependent on? And then what happens is I get really self-absorbed when I'm down there dying and choking and breathing. And yeah, she probably does have a foot on that hose every now and again just to... You know your kids flush the toilet when you're in the shower. You know that. It's not an accident. They've thought about it. But all your attention is now focused on the person that you think is supplying you oxygen. And you're like, this was your job. When God's like, no, it's actually not their job. And then what happens is when we're, then we enter bargaining and negotiating and acting out and guilt tripping and persuasion and all the things that we do. This is what Pete said. He said, we all become manipulators as children. And so because we're like, we need all of these things and it's your job to give them to me, like mom used to, right? And we use the same tools now that we're adults, but we're just a lot smoother at them than we were when we were kids. And then we get into this weird thing where it's like we hold a gun to each other's heads and we're like, tell me that you love me. right? But if they said yes, like, would they really? Because we're in this weird little dependence loop of like, but I need you to. And you have to, or I can't do this. Right? Well, if they have to, is it love though? Right? But every time you manipulate a response from the other person, it won't scratch the itch that you have. Because only God can. So this is one thing that I do that I've been really good at that I can't do anymore. Is that I would do something for Pastor Aaron, then I would be like, and if she didn't respond in the next second or so, probably less than that because I'm a little impatient, I would be like, then I would do this little voice. I would be like, thank you, Corey. I love you so much. That was so sweet. And then she'd be like, thank you, Corey. I love you so much. But I'm like, you know what? That doesn't scratch my itch. It's sort of funny, but I'm like, but she didn't do it on her own. But I'm also kind of trying to get her to, and spending most of my time trying to get recognized for the things that I'm doing, because the other side of it is I think that I'm her supply too. When the reality of it is, I think that's a burden that's a little bit too heavy to bear, because if I screw up as her husband, maybe God has other ways to, you're like, other husbands? No. Maybe God has other ways to fill her soul that don't include me if I mess up my job, and maybe God is still on the throne, and maybe God can still get it to you, even if your marriage didn't work out, and even if you don't see your kids as much as you want to, and even if you're financially not in the place you want to be in. Because God is bigger than all of those things. And God is also bigger than your mistakes. You know, prior to the fall, neither Adam or Eve thought that the other person was their supplier. What does the devil do? He comes in and he's like, did God really say? He's like, you know, God's not meeting your needs. That tree can. In fact, God is trying to keep your need from being met because he won't let you eat from that. And ever since then, we've been in the cycle of like trying to find the right tree, trying to find the right mate, trying to find the right everything but what God promised in the first place, that the devil just took our eyes off of the real supply of all of this, which was God. False belief. My core needs can be met by anything other than God. It's the greatest deception in relationships. Now, people can be God's instrument of supply to meet your needs. So here's how I would say this now is like, I'm probably God's favorite instrument to meet a lot of Pastor Aaron's needs. So I'm probably his favorite instrument, but I'm not his only instrument. But I'm only an instrument. I am not the supplier of the oxygen. So there's a huge difference there. Now I don't have to look for her to like, hey, if you don't, then I can't. Now it's like, well, if you don't, that's on you, I guess, and you're going to have to deal with that with God. But I'm still going to go to God to feel a certain way. I'm still going to go to God to like, what do you think about me? I'm still going to go to God so that what people think about me is not the thing that decides the direction of my life. It's good. It's nice. It's icing on the cake, but it's not the cake. You know what I'm saying? Like, it helps, but it can also be a massive distraction. You think that the wealthiest people in the world with everything that you want would be the happiest people, but they're not. Why is that? They've just got a better looking oxygen line that also doesn't work because they're looking to something else to supply their need. 1 Samuel 15 says, rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness as iniquity and idolatry. So this is where we get into, you can have that miracle child if you want, but that miracle child might become an idol in your life too. You can find that spouse if you're single, but that spouse might be a great trap for you too, if that's what you thought would fix you. Or if you're maybe more like me, of like, I like relationships where I get to bring a lot to the table, and maybe I get to save you. And God's like, did I need your help with the saving? You might be an instrument that brings my saving to the table. You know, it's always irritating when you're trying to save your spouse and they don't appreciate it. That's easier for me on the role of that is to supply the need rather than be the need. But now I'm talking about my emotions all the time, and it sucks. Can I tell you why I hate talking about my feelings? A, because I'm a guy, so there's that. B, because my dad is my dad, and there's that. I love Pastor Richard, but let's just say his childhood didn't have a lot of talking about his feelings because they'd rather not die. So he had to work on the farm. So that's great. And they did what they needed to do. And believe me, there's nothing in my heart that's weird about that. I'm a little worried about being vulnerable because I think anybody who's experienced pain, particularly from the enemy in their life, is like, if I talk about this, am I not just painting a huge target on myself for the devil to be like, here's where it really hurts? So I have to, my barriers to get through this so that lion that I ran away from doesn't keep threatening in my life, is I got to go up to that thing and be like, I guess I'm going to talk about it. I'm even going to talk about it with maybe some of you and be like, hey, I need this. I might need this from you, but I need to tell you about where I'm at with all of this. But I want you to know that you're not the one who supplies that need, but it would be good if you were maybe a part of that, as I'm going to serve you the best way that I can as well. But on that other side, I've got to cross that threshold of scary to be like, okay, I might be unheard here. I might be unseen here, but I'm never really unheard or seen if my focus is back on God. Rebellion is as a sin of witchcraft, stubbornness as iniquity and idolatry. We're good. So that word idolatry means like the household idols. You don't really know what this means, but this means in your home like Netflix, your hockey team. Oh, is this not funny? Your fridge. The baked goods section at the coffee place. The supplementary gods that we look to make us happy, your career, whatever that is. So these were like backup gods. So what hung up Israel for a long time was like, they were like, serve Elohim, serve Yahweh, but if you want your crops to go, you better serve Baal. If you want sexual satisfaction, you better go after Asherah, If you want this, you better go after this, whatever societal gods they're parading in front of you that can't make you happy anyways. But this word, the idolatry means household idols. That word means teraphim. It can also be translated into the word Rapha. We sing the song, Jehovah Rapha, heal your body. That word Rapha means healing. So Jehovah means God of healing. But idols, think about what the idols used to promise: physical health, longevity of life. So when you think about that, it says stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Idol worship can actually be the thing that you go to get healed. I love the medical system, but if that's where you go, that's where all of your hope is, then that actually is your God. That's where you're going to keep the oxygen flowing. And God's like, it's good. We need that. But that can't be your source of supply. Your career, whatever that looks like. Where you go to get mending and healing. Wherever I turn to get healing becomes my idol. So where do I go? If I turn to my wife to get healing, she's not supposed to occupy that place in my life. I'm supposed to go to God for my healing. So we always say, because we're Christians, we're like, but I would never do that. Yeah, on a functional level, though, that's what we're doing. So you can have this I talk about this, but functionally, I'm actually going there. When we realize that, we're like, that's a heavy burden for the other person to carry around forever that they're not going to be able to do. Some of us get wrapped up in music or books or thinking or philosophy. The reason these things are beautiful is because they point to the God who created all of it, the beauty in the entire world. But we get lost in reading about the flower, but forget the God who made it, who made the person that you're depending on, who made your children, who made your friends. Dependence is the greatest hindrance to a healthy relationship because the diver is dependent on the person in the boat. And initially it kind of feels like love. But complete dependence on a person is actually called slavery, if you think about that. Now that doesn't mean that, as a mother though, it makes sense. But as you grow up into an adult, all of a sudden completely dependent on a person of no, I really have to have them do all the things. But that makes you the slave and them the master, doesn't it? Or if you're the one providing it, I'm the master and you're the slave. Now, it's not just hold on. Independence is also the greatest hindrance to a healthy relationship. Because Jesus says, without me, you can do nothing. Interdependent is also the greatest hindrance because it becomes transactional and about power and control. If you do this, then I'll do that. If you meet this need, then I'll do that. If I clean the dishwasher out, let me buy another motorcycle. And the congregation said amen. Thank you for backing me up. Appreciate that. But this whole idea of interrelated is maybe a better term, where we both kind of need each other, but neither of us are the source. Does that make sense? We both kind of need each other, but neither of us are the source of that. We're only instruments that God uses to help in the other person's life. John 4, the woman at the well, I don't know if you watched that on The Chosen, but Jesus says to her, she's at the well, she's been rejected by the community, she's had failed romantic relationships, none of the women want to hang out with her or want her to hang out with their guys, and she is there in the heat of the day, and it's terrible, and Jesus is there, and Jesus says to her, he asks her for a drink of water, which is kind of ironic, but then he says, if you knew who I am, you'd be asking me, because this well never runs dry. And you're going to have to come here every day until you die in the heat of the day. And it will never do what I can do in a moment forever in your life. I think sometimes we treat God as a pharmacist, where it's like, here's how I would like my need met. Rather than just going to him tomorrow morning when you wake up and reading your Bible and say, it hurts here. We're like, here's how I would like you to fix this. And it's like, if you're married, it's always your spouse. It's always your spouse. It's like, I would like you to fix them, actually, so they can fix this. But rather go and say, God, this hurts here. And I think we need to go a little bit deeper in this, even as a church. God, it hurts here. And he'll be like, actually, it has nothing to do with the person. It has to do with something that I want to heal in you, where I'm not your supply yet. Or maybe a line that you've run away from for a long time. Am I willing to submit to God's control and trust his heart with how he meets those needs? This is why you need the church community so desperately. So even in our family, our family has gaps in it. We're like Swiss cheese. We're really good at a few things, but we have all sorts of gaps in our family that we need you to be God's instruments in. That's why, I'm not kidding. That's why our kids are so faithful in youth. Because God will use you as instruments to fill in all the gaps that we've left. That's why we need the church family. That's why you need your small groups. God has any number of air hoses at any given time. If one gets plugged, he opens another. I don't have to figure it out and make that happen. Well, that's great. And everybody's like, oh, great. Pastor's super mature now. Yeah, that's great. Unless that's what you were really good at. Is not doing this. Oswald Chambers says this: the obstacle will be a matter of total indifference to the river that will flow steadily through you if you stay focused on the source. It's how I think, if you're in the people helping business, which you all are, it's how I think we stay filled with God when helping broken people. Because I don't think that I'm your source. I think I'm an instrument, one of them. But if I'm your source, the need would overwhelm me. There's no way I can fix you. I don't know how to do that. And if you think that it's your job, Dad, to fix your family, when God is like, my job. Turn to me. Pastor Aaron's sermon on Sunday, I'm not going to give any of it away. It is going to tell you kind of how to do this. But when I turn my focus to God, then it becomes his problem. And I'm just like, so what do I do next? And it just simplifies my entire life and takes the pressure off. Come on up, worship. So I think what you need to do, if you've been in the Savior business, like maybe I have, I think you need to resign your position as Savior of the world. And let me just take the pressure off of you and be like, okay, I think we need to apologize to the Lord tonight. Maybe in the prayer corner, this would be a good thing to do. I've been trying to save so-and-so. I've been trying to save my family. Jesus actually wants to be the person that does that. He just wants an instrument to do that. That doesn't get the credit, by the way, for saving, because we're just doing what God tells us to do and empowers us to do, and the river flows through us to do it. The other side is, if you've got somebody that I think we just need to resign or fire somebody today that you've been looking to. Now, you don't go to your spouse and be like, I'm firing you. You never did it for me. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, that's like you need to personally be like, I've been looking at them. God, I should have been looking to you. I'm sorry. They've been my idol. They didn't even know that they were my idol probably, but I've been making an idol of them, and I'm sorry, God. That's you. You're the only one who could do that. I've been doing something that's unfair to my spouse for a long time, unfair to my teenager for a long time, unfair to my friend. They can't do that inside of me. So can we just do that, and let's leave the Savior complex today and leave the I need to be saved by that person complex in the room today, and go out of here once God does the healing in the worship and in the prayer ministry. Once God does that, go out of here with a completely different mindset of like, hear my heart when I say this, like, I don't need the other person to get everything right to get what I need. I just need to get closer to you so that you can just open up another air hose. Because when you start looking back at your life accurately, you start realizing I've been stepping on all sorts of people's air hoses. And God has, in his grace and kindness, opened other air hoses to them as well. And then we're like, ooh. So now we're out of the transactional thing of like, I keep more air hoses open than, like, no, you actually don't. You're probably standing on more than, you know what I'm saying? It just creates this beautiful thing in our lives where we're like, okay, we're not trying to balance the scales anymore of justice. It takes judgment out of the picture. And we're just like, God, I'm just going to look for you. I just need some oxygen today. This is where it hurts. And I'm not going to tell you how to do that. But God, if there's a person that you want me to help today, I would love to help too. Even if I don't feel like I can breathe right now, I would still like to help somebody else today too. Does that feel okay? Just kind of take the pressure off of you, I think.